Hi, this is going to be a very quick tutorial about a little part of my workflow that I use for lining up shots in Unreal and in Maya without relying on using LiveLink. The reason you would sometimes want to do that is because you won't always have access to Unreal, or an animator that you're working with might not always have access to Unreal. So doing this allows you to package up your Maya scenes if you're working with more people and they can see the shot within Maya. It also means that there's less back and forth. You don't have to switch between windows and things like that. And it's just quite a useful little non-linear workflow that allows you to block out your shot in Unreal and refine it and work on it with the same camera data in Maya. So that's what we're going to do here. So you can see on the screen that I've got two characters, a stormtrooper and a scout trooper. And in the shot, in the mocap data, essentially, the stormtrooper is handing over a rifle to the scout trooper. So there's a bit of character interaction going into this as well. So hopping over to Unreal, you can see that I've blocked out the shot here. The viewport on the top is just in unlit mode just for the sake of performance, and the viewport on the bottom is a representation of what the camera sees. And we can see here that in the mocap data, the character is, well, one of the characters is handing over a rifle to another character in the shot, and it's a nice little close-up of it. What you can also see as well is that where it lines up in Unreal is not the same as what's going on in Maya. So the reason it's like this is because I just recorded this myself. So I did two takes, one with the character handing over the rifle and the other with the character that is receiving it. This little workflow and the way I recorded it allows me to just get a character interaction just using one actor and using multiple takes. It helps that it's a short shot as well. So what I'm going to do here is just quickly show you how to export the data out from Unreal. So we're going to export the camera and each of the characters relative to one another, and we're going to use that data in Maya to basically rebuild the shot and allow us to animate it to camera. So I've brought Sequencer over here, and you can see there that there's a few things we're interested in. So all we want is the camera, and we want the trooper range and the instructor here. And you can see here as well in the timeline that the trooper animation is not in line with the instructor animation. This is because of what I mentioned before, where I recorded two takes, basically me playing both characters, and naturally, because I'm doing it at different times, the interaction isn't going to line up. But because this is such a short shot, I can kind of work around that. And what I've done in my workflow is I've taken the data of someone passing the item and someone receiving it, and I've built the shot in Unreal using the raw data with nothing else done to it to allow me to line up the timings of them to where I want. So that interaction there happens. So you can see the instructor or the scout trooper character reacts as the stormtrooper is placing the rifle down, and that just times up the performance. So this is just kind of the workflow I use for that, just to get those interactions in there and looking good, again with just one actor. What I need to do to get the data out is I'm going to select each of the characters, select the camera, right click, export, and this will generate export in FBX. And you can see I've done this a few times already. I'm actually just going to overwrite the one I just did. So in this case, the shot for me is SR2 140. So I've got a FBX file here called SR2 140, which is the name of the shot, underscore cameras.fbx. So I'm going to save over that, replace. And then the FBX settings, you can just leave as default. This is what I've got in here anyway. I'm going to hit export, and you can export this out to wherever you like. So this is it here, and then what I'm going to do is just bring that into Maya like you would any other FBX file. Drag and drop. I'm using a 4K monitor, so normally this gets a bit big. File content, add, animation take, Unreal take, and you can bake it into it however you like. Get import in. And we're also going to use this to line up the characters with wherever we want to be, both in terms of where they are in 3D space, but we're going to also line them up with respect to time, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, that's them in. So what you'll get is for each character you'll get a group, and then for the camera you'll get a camera in Maya, and this is what it looks like. So they are imported in real world space, so if you can kind of see that there, so if I just change my camera properties so you can see a bit more. I struggle actually. You can see here that my camera is, let's just say it's very, very far away from the origin. It's way up there because that's where it sits in the level in real space, if you like, in world coordinates. So that's just something to bear in mind. Yeah, if I was to hit 0 on these, you can see it pushes it way over there. So I'll just undo. So what I'm going to do in Maya is we just need to do a little bit of a conversion. So we want to make sure we keep the animation intact, which is actually quite easy to do. So let's just dive into the groups here. And what I'm going to do is just delete the information I'm not interested in. So you can see that after going into the camera, by going into perspective, then Cam Cine 2, or whatever your camera might be called, in this case this is what mine's called, that we see that the shot lines up with the skeletons. So what we can do now is just bring the skeletons and line them up with the animation rigs. So to line it up, it's quite straightforward. All you need to do is select the free, in this case the free objects that we imported in, so the two groups for each of the characters and the camera. Press Ctrl G, create a group, and I'm going to call this shot GRP, and this is going to create a group at 0. And the reason we're doing this step first is because if I was to make a group that was here, then it will break the camera animation, which is not what we want. Okay, I'm going to create another group now, and then I'm going to expand one of these. So I'm going to go with the trooper one. I'm going to parent it to the reference node, which is on this particular skeleton. This is basically the position of the character in Unreal. In this case, it's going to line up with a control I have on the animation rig. And you can see here the transforms are way off, so I'm just going to 0 them all. 0 everything. And now this little group is lined up with the base of the skeleton. I'm going to unparent that now. And this shot group we created, I'm going to parent that here. So that, again, the reason we're doing that is to keep this animation intact, because this animation for the camera is going to be relative to the world. So we want to maintain that world position, and that's what this group here is for. That's basically giving it a pivot point that is at 0, which is over there. Okay, so now all we have to do is 0 all this. Now it's all lined up. And then we can actually start to line stuff up. So the rotate X, I'm going to keep it -90. The reason being for that is because it's to do with an axis conversion. Like if I hit 0 on that, you see it goes on its side. It's because we're converting from Z up to Y up, and that's just part of the axis conversion that needs to happen. So it's normally -90 and then 180, and that gives you a bang on reference. But for our purposes, just leaving that as 0 will be fine. But if you want to be accurate, we'll just hit 180 on there. Again, it's just because of an axis conversion that we need to do. The next thing I'm going to do is actually line the characters up. So I mentioned I had a control that lines up with the reference joint on these particular skeletons, and I am actually going to take my animation rig and I'm going to line it up to these skeletons here. So I'm going to start with the instructor one. So in this case, I know it's this one. And what I'm going to just click it, shift select it. I would definitely recommend you install a plugin called Red 9. It comes with all these little cool tools, including a tool I use to bind mocap data onto a custom rig. But what it also comes with is this thing called Simple Snap. And what it lets you do is select one object, select another, and then you'll snap it into place. And then you can see here I need to do an axis conversion. So if I hit object and then simple snap relative 90 degrees, boom, 90, 180. There you go. I'm going to do the same, and then I'm going to set a keyframe on that. So I'll set a keyframe on 0. And I'm going to do the same thing with our other character now. So I'm going to select the reference joint, simple snap, and then with 90 degrees, oh, I did the wrong one, you numpty. So select the reference joint, select the root control on my rig, or you can use whatever you want to. Depends on how you set it up. This is just how mine's set up. Simple snap. Again with a relative offset of 90 degrees, 90 in the X, 180 in the Y. And you see here that it's actually 0, so I can just hit that there. So now, not bad, is it? So if I go into the camera now, everything's all lined up. There is one other thing. You can see that my animation is out of sync. So if I hop to Unreal, you can see, and this is just a consequence of how I shot it. It was one person doing 2 characters in 2 different takes. So there are some compromises you need to make, but what I managed to do, like I mentioned before, is get that raw data into Unreal and then block it out in Unreal, figure out the shot, and then work my way back into Maya. So what I can do here is I can take I know exactly what the offset is on this animation here. So this is 1 second 25, which is 55 frames. So I can, knowing this, I can offset it. And checking the offset on the Trooper B as well, you can see it's offset 81 frames, or it starts at 81 frames, so I need to move this back. Because what I want is basically for everything to be 0 and lined up here quite nicely, which should be quite straightforward. So again, it's another little tool that comes with the Red 9 tools, which is super easy, that does this, but I'm going to do it manually or the old-fashioned way, just because for the sake of demonstration. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way just for the sake of demonstration, but there is a tool in the Red 9 animation toolkit that actually does this. That lets you offset animations really, really easily. So for the first character, I'll do it the normal way. For the second character, I'll use that tool. Anyway, before I do anything, I'm just going to create a new display group. I'm going to call it reference. And I'm just going to put my reference skeleton and reference camera in that. And in fact, what I might do is I'm going to hide my reference skeletons. So, because I don't need them anymore. I just needed them just for lining everything up. All I need is the camera. Okay, first things first, let's line up the Trooper. So what I'm going to do, in my rig in particular, I'm just going to select my master control, which is normally the top of my hierarchy. Select hierarchy, and I'm just going to expand this to like 400. And I'm going to expand this to -90. What was my offset? My offset at frame 0 is 81, so I'm basically just going to grab all this and I'm going to move it back 81 frames. There we are. So now that's lined up with the shot. Next, I'm going to do the Instructor Character, and I'm going to do this the other way like I just mentioned. So the way I've also set this up is I can just select all my controls in here for the rig, or I can just do it in there. And in the Red 9 animation tools, there's this time offset property. I'm going to untick hierarchy because I don't need it, but if you had hierarchy selected, then you just select the base node and it'll offset everything. In fact, I'll just leave that on. Why not? And what I want to do here is offset it forward by 1 second and 25 frames, which is 55 frames. So in Maya, type 55, offset by. I'm going to leave hierarchy on because I'm just selecting the global control. Offset by. Now when I select everything, it's offset 55 frames. And you can see my animations lined up now. Cool, eh? The other thing I need to do is line up my characters. So I mentioned this control before. If I was to open up my rig, and I'll show you what's underneath the hood just now, you can see I've got a reference joint here. So that reference joint is just the root of my skeleton right there. So what I'm going to do is basically line up the reference joints for the 2 skeletons, and this is how you can very easily line up 2 characters and have them interact with each other. So you can see if I move this control here, it will move the reference joint. So all I need to do is grab one, select the other, simple snap, and then I'm going to just go to frame 0 and set a key. So now, when I export my animation, my 2 characters are going to be in the same place. on a technical level, they're going to be in the same place anyway. Okay, now I'm just going to hide that. That shouldn't be out there, that should be within here. I think I might have broken that. Oh no, I didn't. That's fine. Never mind. Okay. So the last thing to do is I'm just going to export my animations and update the FPX files that are being read by Unreal, and just show you what it looks like in Unreal when you're done. It's going to be very clean, very nice. So if I go to File, then Game Exporter, I'm going to create a new animation for each of these guys. So I'm going to call it SR2 140 Trooper. And next one I'm going to do is I'm going to go to SR2 140 Instructor. Okay. And then the length for the shot is about 3 seconds. Let's say 105 frames. I'm not going to export much more than I need, at least for now. Okay. And that's all the setup there that I need to do. So I'm going to close it now. Save. I'm just saving just in case it crashes. Game Exporter. And then I've set up my rig to have object sets for what I export with. So with this drop down, Export Object Set, click the drop down, I've got Instructor and I've got Trooper. That's just a renaming of the namespace that's being used for the rig. That lets me get Trooper and Instructor, but it doesn't really matter. Walrus V6 is just the skeleton here, just the reference joint. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is export our Instructor. Going to do an export there. Again, your one will be quite different. This is just me showing part of my workflow for lining up shots and characters and things, so that what you see in Maya is one-to-one with what you see in Unreal. The same technique would probably apply to Blender or 3ds Max or whatever you use. Maya is just the tool I use. You can see here that I just exported the wrong object set on SR2 140 Trooper. Oops. That's the only thing I don't like about this exporter, is it doesn't really choose between objects. You have to do that manually, which I'm not a huge fan of. Okay. Now, switching back to Unreal. On the input, I'm just going to apply my skeleton. You can see here it's got an input rotation of 90. That's just to do with axis conversions between Maya and Unreal. That, or I've not set it up properly. Probably more likely that. Oh well. So it's going to import that source file. And what I'm going to do, there we are. Just took a little moment to import both of them. You can see here it's exporting animation out. I already had a location set up in here, which is just an animations folder. Let's import this last animation. So again, we've not actually changed the data. So our goal is to just have the shot look identical, right? That's all we're after. So what I'm going to do, change the animation, go to 140, and there we are. I want our trooper. So this looks right. Cool. Next thing I want, oh actually one moment, it's not right. You know how I know it's not right? Because it starts at 81 frames. I don't want it starting there. I want it starting at 0. Let's see if we can find 0. There it is. Alright, let's try that now. Much better. There we are. There we go. That looks better. Way better. Okay. Next thing, I'm going to move the instructor animation to 0. Right click. Drop down. 140. Instructor. So you can see that the instructor's moved. That is because we moved where the reference drawing was. So that is going to cause that. Not a problem. What I can do, grab the transforms for the trooper range. In this case, it's the character handing over the rifle. Going to delete the transform on the instructor character. And I'm going to paste the transforms from the trooper range. And you can see now they're lined up and where they should be. So the reason it's doing that is because of this reference joint here. So if I show the skeleton for both of these characters, one moment. It's IKFK scale. I don't want that one. I want that one. There we are. You can see here that the reference joint is in exactly the same place for both, and that's what this control controls. The location of that reference joint, and that's how we line them up. We basically tell Unreal that when these characters are in these positions, when the pivot points line up like this, they'll be lined up. Basically, we're manipulating the pivot point to work for a character interaction, similar to how you'd hold a prop, which I will do a little video on that probably straight after this, because that's part of the shot I need to do. Anyway, yeah, so we're going to the viewport there. You can see here that everything's all lined up, so I can now categorically say that at, let's say, 2 seconds and 15 frames, that is 75 frames, or frame 75. I can categorically say that my shot will look like this. In summary, that's how you set up a camera in Maya and basically recreate the shot that you're working in or animating to in Maya without having to use dynamic live link, which also means that you don't need to have Unreal installed to be able to see the shot. So let's say you're an animator and you're working with some guys that use Unreal. This workflow basically means you don't have to install Unreal. You can just get the guys you're working with just to give you an export like we did at the start of this video, and then everyone's happy. Everything just works, and it will look glorious. Anyway, that's it for today. I just wanted this to be a little insight into my workflow, just particularly with how I work with shots and how I animate characters and stuff in Maya. That's everything from me, so bye for now, and see you later.